What's up, guys? This is Chris here from East Coast PC, and welcome back to the channel. Today we got some very exciting news about Intel Arc A series of GPUs, and Intel has released a driver update that radically improves performance in older DirectX 9 titles. Now, a lot of you may already know that when Intel Arc series of GPUs launched, they did not natively support DirectX 9 titles. So what Intel was doing was using a form of emulation to get those games to run on the Intel Arc GPUs. Well, the result we got from that was absolute disastrous performance. So what they have done now is they're basically doing the same thing that Steam is doing for the Steam Deck to get older games to run on the Steam Deck. It's called the Steam Proton, and basically it just transfers the older DirectX 9 titles to the Vulkan API that so many of us love because it just runs so great. We're going to take a deep dive on that, talk about what it means for these Intel Arc GPUs, and we're also going to be talking about with the recent price cut to the Intel Arc A750 that is now down to $249 and it's readily available for that price on Newegg. Is it competitive, and can we recommend it as an alternative to something like the AMD Radeon 6600 XT or the 6650 XT? Before we get started, if there's anyone who is not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, comment, do all that good YouTube stuff. We appreciate each and every one of y'all so much. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, guys, so what Intel is using for their DirectX 9 titles to improve performance so much is Intel is using the DXVK, part of the Steam Proton, for their Windows Arc GPU DirectX 9 drivers. Now, if we come down here to this paragraph here, DXVK translates DirectX 9, DirectX 10, and DirectX 11 to Vulkan, which is an open source API that works very well. I'm sure most of you watching this video are already familiar with the Vulkan API. But anyway, DXVK is primarily written for Wine, the Windows compatibility layer, which is what Proton is made from. Proton is what the majority of games on Steam Deck run through. However, it also has a native implementation for Linux, and it can be used even on Windows too. So it's not a big surprise to see this. Heck, even NVIDIA used DXVK for RTX Remix. Now, what they are doing here by using this is a very good idea. I'm so glad they're doing this because when Intel launched their Arc GPUs, the only way that DirectX 9 games were running on those GPUs is through emulation, and the performance was absolutely terrible. So this is a huge improvement that they have made to their DirectX 9 support. I'm so happy to see that Intel is working extremely hard on older titles. And one thing I will say is it is completely understandable, even though we weren't happy about it and it felt like a product that was totally unready for launch. AMD and NVIDIA have been building drivers for years and years and years, so they already know what to do for those old titles. So when they make a new architecture, all they have to do is make tweaks here and there. And you know, like I said, they've built drivers for those old games for so many years. Intel has not. So Intel designed a new graphics architecture, and it worked really well in a lot of scenarios on new DirectX 12 titles, but it was the older DirectX 11 and DirectX 9 titles mainly that suffered so badly. So now that DirectX 9 is using this Steam Proton, that is great news, and that should greatly improve performance on just about all the DirectX 9 games, hopefully. Now that that's out of the way, what we're going to do here, guys, and we are going to look at a lot of third-party benchmarks, and we are going to look at the performance from launch, not just in these old titles, but the newer titles as well. And we're also going to go back and take a look at how these older titles such as CSGO and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege performed back then, how terrible it was and how good it is now, and how good of a job Intel has done. I'm really impressed with what they've done with the older titles there. And the reason we are looking at this whole graphics card, which the main one we're going to be focusing on is the Intel Arc A750. The reason we're going to be looking at the newer titles as well is because this card launched at $289, and now that they have given it a price drop to $249, that changes everything in my opinion. And for a lot of people, it could be a pretty good decision to buy this card, especially if you need some good AV1 decoding. The decoders and encoders in this Intel Arc GPU are really good. They're really competitive. They were actually the first one to market with a AV1 encoder. So we're going to take a look at all that good stuff here, guys, and we're going to take a look at the price. We're going to take a look at how it compares to the AMD cards in that price tier. So let's get going here, guys, and see what the $249 that we can get this Intel card for actually compares to when we're looking at the AMD cards, because NVIDIA basically has nothing worth buying in that price category right now. Okay, guys, so right here on Newegg, this is all of the Intel Arc GPUs that are currently available, sold and shipped by Newegg. Now, that includes the Intel Arc 380, the Intel Arc A750, and the Intel Arc A770, the 8 and 16 gig variant. So the main one that is important for us, like I said before, is the Intel Arc A750. It gets you most of the performance of the Intel Arc A770, which has not had an official price drop. It's still at $349 right here. But our Intel Arc A750 is down here at $249, which I believe will really give it a chance to compete against AMD in the budget market for now. So $249 for that card. That's good news. Now, what is it competing against, though, guys? Here, what I've done here is I have selected and filtered out only the AMD Radeon RX 6600s, the RX 6600 XTs, and the RX 6650 XTs. So that will, I figured by putting all the three of them cards in there, we could catch cards that are on sale. Sometimes, cards, the prices change daily, a little bit up and down, up and down. As a matter of fact, one of these cards right down here, this MSI Radeon 6600 XT, right now, it is being sold for, I believe that would be $279. Yesterday it was it's $55 off. Yesterday it was $75 off. So depending on what day you actually look at this video probably won't go up till tomorrow. So these prices may be slightly different, and they may go up a little bit tomorrow and down a little bit the next day. And that's just how these budget graphics cards are typically go. So what is our best option here, guys? I would like to, as far as competition for the Intel Arc A750, I would like to put the the Radeon 6600 XT right in the middle. But actually, guys, if we come here and get our calculator out here, with these discounts, we got $334. Let's see here. $334 minus $55 is $279 for the 6600 XT. But if we come up here for the 6650 XT, we got $294 minus $15, and that is going to be $279 as well. So right now, definitely if you were buying an AMD card right now, the best card to get would be this one, in my opinion, for $279. Now, over here, we also have 6600 XTs for $274. But my main point of showing you guys this is the 6600 and the 6600 XT and the 6650 XT, a lot of times we will be all jumbled together in price. So if you can get a 6650 XT for not much more money, that is definitely the route to go. Now that we have seen the prices of these GPUs, let's look at some performance and how the Intel Arc 750 compares to these GPUs. Okay, guys, so to start off with a few newer titles that use DirectX 12, and one quick note, guys, I have used all 1440p for all these performance comparisons, and the reason I have done that is because I feel at this current time in 2023 that most all-around gamers, if they were building a new budget PC, as cheap as 1440p 144 hertz monitors have gotten, I feel like most people want to start out with a 1440p monitor now. Guys, if you feel differently, definitely let me know down in the comments so I can adjust my content going forward. But for something like this and time constraints, I definitely think 1440p is the right resolution to choose. Also, it is a resolution that Intel Arc definitely done better in 1440p than it did in 1080p. So I'm also trying to show a really good use case for these GPUs. So with that out of the way, Dying Light 2 Stay Human, guys, at 1440p high quality. We got the Intel Arc A750 outperformed the 6650 XT, which was the highest performing GPU out of all them three that we just looked at when we were comparing prices. It outscored it 59 frames to 55 frames on average and 54 to 50 on 1% low. So that is a good number there. Also, guys, before we go to the next game, I want to give a shout out to Hardware Unboxed for these benchmark numbers. Those guys have an excellent channel over there. So if you have not ever heard of that channel, head over there and check those guys out. So next up, we got Cyberpunk 2077, another DirectX 12 title, of course. And the Intel Arc A770 and the A750 both outperformed the Radeon 6650 XT by a pretty healthy margin. This is a really good number for this card. And all of these games right here from Hardware Unboxed, these are all launch titles. Now, this is not with the updated driver because the updated driver mainly is improving performance from DirectX 9. Now, over the course of the last few months, Intel has definitely released right many driver updates, and the performance has improved on all of these games as well, but it's small improvements. It's nothing like these older DirectX 9 titles are seeing from that Steam Proton that they are now using since they have done away with the emulation for DirectX 9 titles. Anyway, Cyberpunk 2077 with 1440p high quality, we got 55 frames compared to 49 frames on the 750 comparing it to the 6650 XT, and we got 47 compared to 44 on the lows, so on the 1% low. So that is a good win for Intel as well. And like I said, guys, if you're playing in 1080p, the conversation changes a little bit because Intel does not do as well in 1080p. All right, on to the next game, guys. We got Far Cry 6, again at 1440p high quality. In this game, AMD wins by a pretty big margin. Even their RX 6600 slightly edges out the Intel Arc A770, and the A750 is the GPU that we're focusing on today. So this is not a good showing for Intel. Very good showing for AMD. It's not necessarily bad. It's just AMD done really well in this title, and this is a AMD sponsored title. It is also a title sponsored by Intel. I assume mainly for the CPU optimizations. I don't know if much or anything of that sponsorship from Intel focused on the Intel Arc side of their GPUs, but as far as the GPU side, this is a AMD sponsored title, and they did do very well in this title. All right, guys, so we're going to talk about two final games here, which I think will probably be the most important when we're talking about performance improvements on Intel Arc GPUs to these older games that they had such a problem with at launch. Now, shout out to Gamers Nexus for these benchmarks here, because we don't have the Intel Arc A750 in the shop here, so we're using Hardware Unboxed and Gamers Nexus as benchmarks. Both great channels. You should definitely go check those guys out, like I said before. But anyway, what they got here at 1440p Ultra, Rainbow Six Siege, DirectX 11 title that is still hugely popular with so many people. We got the Intel Arc A750 at 99 frames per second when this card launched. And Intel has managed to bring that all the way up to 172 frames per second with their latest driver. Now, it is still a ways behind the AMD 6600 XT at 196 frames per second, but that's still a massive improvement, and I'm very happy to see what Intel is doing with these drivers here. Now that this game's out of the way, the most important game, definitely save that one for last, and that will be CSGO. Now, what Gamers Nexus has got here at 1440p, very high settings, and this is a DirectX 9 title. This is what Intel was touting that they had such performance improvements on, and boy, do they. At launch, with the 3802 driver that was re-ran recently, the Intel Arc A750 only got 130 frames per second, guys. The game that's so easy you could daggone near run it on a potato. We come up here to the latest driver. The Intel Arc A750 got 215 frames per second. Now, no matter how you cut the pie, that is just a massive performance improvement. I'm very happy with what Intel is doing with these older DirectX 9 games. I'm happy to see the DirectX 11 performance improvement in Rainbow Six Siege, and obviously we don't have time to talk about every game today. So basically that covered, I think, most of the, gaming spectrum in the short amount of time that we had. We covered 3 new DirectX 12 titles that Intel was already doing pretty good in those games. We covered a DirectX 11 title and a DirectX 9 title, both of which are very popular, and Intel has made massive improvements in both of those games. Now, before we end this video, guys, we got to talk about taking all of that into consideration and the new price. Should you actually spend your hard-earned money on one of these GPUs? Okay, guys, so the most important thing, in my opinion, to make sure your computer supports before putting this GPU, any of the Intel Arc GPUs, on a potential possible GPU list for your next purchase is make sure your platform supports resizable bar. Now, here is a list right here in front of us of the official platforms that support resizable bar. Now, on NVIDIA and AMD GPUs, resizable bar is just a feature that most of the time, as long as it's optimized, gets you more performance, as long as the game is ready for it and understands what's going on. However, that is not the case for Intel Arc GPUs. As I was talking about in this video earlier, when I was saying how NVIDIA and AMD have been developing drivers and graphics cards for years and years and years, well, that's not the same case for Intel. While they've had their iGPUs, that's not even comparable to discrete graphics cards. So when they design these cards, resizable bar is a great technology. It's a newer technology. Well, they obviously had that turned on in the development of these cards, and the resizable bar works good with the cards from what I can tell, from what everybody's telling me. The only problem is if you have a platform that does not support resizable bar, there is absolutely no way anyone should ever buy an Intel Arc GPU and try to run it in a computer without resizable bar, because the performance is absolutely atrocious. It's basically an absolute requirement to get good performance out of your Arc GPU. Now, here is the systems right here that Intel says officially supports resizable bar with the Arc GPUs. We got 13th gen, the newest Intel Core CPUs, and 700 and 600 series motherboards. We got 12th gen Intel Core processors with 600 series motherboards. We got 10th and 11th gen with 400 and 500 series chipset motherboards. And then for AMD Ryzen, of course, we got Ryzen 7000 with their 600 series motherboards, and we got Ryzen 5000 with all 5000 like X570 and B550 motherboards. And then also it says most AMD Ryzen 3000 processors, excludes AMD 3000G series processors. So most of the Ryzen 3000 series, the Zen 2 platform, will support resizable bar. Now, for Intel, one thing that I can say for sure, there is a very good amount of 9th generation Intel, like for example, I had a Z390 Gigabyte Z390 Master and a Intel Core i9 9900K, and although the support was not official from the manufacturer, it was basically not a requirement from Intel to support resizable bar or do a BIOS update to support that. A lot of board manufacturers supported resizable bar through a BIOS update for the Z390 platform and the 9th generation Intel CPUs. I can say for a fact that my Z390 Master did support it. It actually got support very early on. I was very impressed with Gigabyte just because Intel and AMD and NVIDIA, everybody who was kind of working on resizable bar at the time didn't say that this platform should support it. Well, Gigabyte said there's absolutely no reason why these CPUs cannot support resizable bar, and they enabled it for most of the CPUs that drop into the Z390 Master. And like I said, a lot of other motherboards. That's the thing though, guys. If you don't have a motherboard on this specific list, be very careful because you may not have support for resizable bar. And in most cases, you probably won't. But like I said, a lot of 9th generation Intel Core i-Series processors and motherboards will support it. Now, if you don't have it, it's just a non-starter. Everything we talked about in this video is irrelevant until you get a newer system. Even though it's a budget system, it may be a budget system, something you bought from eBay, a pre-owned, you got off Facebook Marketplace or wherever you buy your used hardware at. That's fine as long as it is on this official support list or it has support through a BIOS update from your board manufacturer. Now that the resizable bar is out of the way, the other and basically final point that we're going to bunch, a bunch of different issues into this one thing here is the stability of your system while using Intel Arc graphics cards. Now, I do not have one to test right now. We will be getting one soon just because I want to test it. I want to be able to, hopefully, in the coming months, it'll keep getting better and better, and I'll actually be able to recommend one of these cards to somebody who is not a computer expert. The biggest thing for me and for a lot of people probably watching this video, when I recommend a card to somebody, I've got to know that it's going to work with very, very few problems. There's always going to be some little issue with any computer. Anything can pop up with a computer. It is a computer. With that being said, you should not have major stability issues. And when Arc first launched, there was so many stability issues. And even the games that we looked at the beginning of this video, when we looked over DirectX 12 games that performed really well, even at launch, the problem with the cards at the time was the stability. Now, a lot of that has gotten a lot better from all of my sources telling me to actually have these cards and have done extensive testing on it. However, it is not completely fixed. There is still some issues with the Intel Arc software, the Intel Arc control software. There's another piece of Intel Arc software as well. It's basically your features are kind of split up in between two software packs from what people are telling me. Since I don't have a card, I cannot test all the dirty little details, but there is still some stability issues. There's a few issues with DisplayPort where it'll say something's disconnected when it's not disconnected. Little bugs like that, and that's something you're going to have to take into account when buying one of these GPUs or considering buying one of these GPUs. Now, what I will say, from what I can tell, it does seem these GPUs have gotten a lot better. I'm very happy to see what Intel is doing, and I would love to buy one of these GPUs, and get a first generation Arc card. We've had so many other priorities, and that's why I haven't bought one yet. But I do think Intel is definitely on the right track. I'm very impressed with what they've done with the DirectX 9 performance. And yeah, so that basically sums it up, guys. If you do have resizable bar on your platform, and you are willing, you're tech savvy enough to be able to work around some bugs, then yes, it might be a good card to get, and it's very exciting, and it seems very promising what Intel's doing. We just need to hope and pray that their GPU division don't get axed before it even takes off really good. That's what we're rooting for, because the more competition, the better. We need this competition, guys, and that's why I'm so excited about what Intel is doing in the budget range. That's going to just about wrap this video up, guys. Thank each and every one of y'all for watching this video. If there's anyone who is not subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, comment, do all that good YouTube stuff. We appreciate each and every one of y'all, and we will see y'all soon.